Good afternoon from Prague. I am Martina Pecková-Černá, and I am greeting you from the Arts and Theatre Institute. It is our pleasure to welcome you to the Green Thursday series of international online discussions with Czech and foreign guests from the field of performing arts. We are here every fourth Thursday at the same time, 3 p.m. Central European Time, with diverse moderators and guests ranging from dance and theater artists to curators, culture managers, and theorists.
The overall topic, "The show must go on, offline," was chosen so that we can address the common theme of sustainability and the performing arts from many perspectives. These include the response of the performing arts to the state of the environment and the COVID pandemic, as well as the field's emerging strategies to address urgent social changes and paradigm shifts in culture and in our societies. These discussions are organised by the International Cooperation Department and in collaboration with the European projects Create to Connect, Create to Impact, and the Central European Performing Arts Network, PACE V4. They also correspond with the Arts and Theatre Institutes, culture and the climate activities which serve as a communication platform for public and independent cultural organisations in the Czech Republic on global environmental challenges.
Welcome to the new episode of our webinar series, The Show Must Go On Offline. This episode is called Zooming Theatre, and we are going to focus on theatre projects that were created to work in the digital space during the lockdown. My name is Ádámem Fónaiem, and I'm joined by my fellow moderator, Attilou Szabó, who is the Deputy Director of the Hungarian Theatre Museum and Institute and a professor at Károly Gáspár University in Budapest. Welcome, Attila.
Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Before we welcome our international guests, I would like to address our audience, and I would like to encourage you to ask your questions during the webinar, and we are going to ask them in the last 5 to 10 minutes. And now it's time to introduce our guests.
So our first speaker is Thaddeus Phillips, a theater director from Denver, Colorado, a renegade theater artist who creates visually stunning theater that crosses stylistic boundaries in a variety of themes. Stage design is a major part of his work, as well as cinematic images that remain purely theatrical. Edgar Allan Poe, Serbian astrophysicist living in a Tokyo capsule tower, El Conquistador, New York Theatre Workshop nominated for Drama League Award, about a Colombian peasant who flees his village to become a soap opera star. Contemporary Latin America plays an important role in your theatre work. And you are joining us now from a remote coastal area of Colombia, if I know right, where electricity can go out at any time. Isn't this the perfect setup to speak about the theatre life that is transformed to the online sphere?
Yeah, it's totally perfect.
Despite our efforts to stay live, what are our chances of survival in this day and age of COVID?
Oh, that's the question you're asking me?
Yeah, about your project.
Yeah, well, it's so mixed up and crazy, everything, as you know. Basically, it's about a year ago, right, that most of the theaters, at least started to close because of the virus. And so this is like the year anniversary. And what's interesting is I was in Madrid, Spain, directing a play called Antropoceno, called the Anthropocene in English, about the human epoch, where we're the ones changing our environments. And, you know, it's a very hard topic to make a theater show about. And the show didn't totally make sense. But at one point we had the woman who wrote a book about the Anthropocene in the play finds out she's pregnant. So she goes to the doctor, she does a sonogram, and the set is like the earth, and you see her at the doctor's office. But then when the set spins, you see the video of the sonogram, and then inside is a naked dancer that's like the baby inside of her dancing with very little light. But if the Greek costume designer put a gas mask on the baby, right? So we had this crazy image of this, you know, person dancing inside a womb with a gas mask, and, you know, thinking about the collapsed environment, you know, 50 years from now, you know, but we didn't know 2 weeks later it would be like real gas masks and things. So when I made it back to Colombia after being in Europe, following the virus, kind of just missing it in Italy and Spain, you know, I just accepted all the cancellations of all the tours and projects coming in every week. But sometime in the summer, I had seen that people were doing performances on Zoom, but as we know, the ones I had seen were, you know, with the camera fixed, and I just couldn't figure that out. And I don't know very much about video editing and things. So I saw a guy did a magic show with cards for 25 audience members in California. And that gave me that idea, wait a minute, if I can do a show with a small audience, it somehow made sense to me to connect to them. And then if I can incorporate some kind of elements that involve interaction, then I can make it feel like live, right? Which is very interesting. In my own theater work, I don't do interactions with the audience. You know, it's a presentation on stage, but you know it's live. And then the third element, so the first was small audience, the second was some kind of interaction, and the third was the use of the camera. And I had, being based in South America, I had been on TV playing CIA agents and FBI agents and Narcos and these stupid shows. But I was really interested in a lot of the camera work that I would see them do. So I had this idea to take the camera off the computer and put the webcam on essentially a camera crane in the middle of the room. And I started listening to this old 1990s U2 music and Wim Wenders music. And yeah, great, this is perfect time. So look, we're gonna play, this is a little trailer of Zoom Hotel that's done in one-shot camera tracking on Zoom with really crazy cinematic tricks of top shots and visual images. Like, look, you'll see coming up a phone booth we built that we hang on the wall at one point that's in the middle of the desert. And you can see the camera tracking around the booth. This is a special eyeglass that goes in front of the camera. These are shadows of people who've passed from COVID. And then this is my studio that we transformed into this motel room with the phone and the clock. That just gives you a little feeling of what the show looks like. But it's very simple. It starts with, so what I mean also is when I normally don't work site specific either. You know, I use the stage and the neutrality of the stage to design from. But I couldn't make that work on Zoom. I needed a cinematic, realistic location. And my studio has a bathroom and this window, and it looked like a motel. And so with the idea of Zoom, I found the word Zoom Motel, but that sounded really stupid. So then we divided it to Zoo Motel as a metaphor for planet Earth being like a motel, a place we're all on this planet for a very short time. And it's like a zoo, it's filled with all these crazy things. So then we just started an improvisational process with the camera in the center of the room that allows it to track, you know, so literally, give you an example here. I can be, you know, talking on the phone, but if the camera moves, you know, it's on a very simple system at the studio to be able to do, and then you can tilt the camera down for top shots on the floor. And so it's really an experiment in cinema, but this use of the cinema is to try to make it feel like theatrical and happening in the moment. And the last thing I'll say real quick is that what we did was the room where the Zoom hotel is, it's room number 18 in the show, is its own theater. So the door is the off stage. So the minute I come in the door at the beginning of the show, I stay on stage for 63 minutes. And I'm acting the show in real time in front of the audience as if I would on stage, with one tracking shot and the manipulations of the objects and all of the things. And we have people running sound to mute the mic on Zoom and to add sound. And then we can punch up the 25 screens. One reason why 25 is a good audience is you can fit 25 on one screen, five rows of 5. And then we send out the audience members a PDF, which is their program, which is something that we ask them to print. So they have a hands-on physical thing, and they cut out their room key, and they all have individual room keys that we have to email them. And then they have a map, because there's a whole game with trying to leave the motel that's a magic trick. And there's different little details and stuff. And then we always do a discussion with them after the show and show them the backstage by switching to the computer running the show, which shows you the kind of huge structure we build in the middle, which is a table with all these holes in it and stuff to operate the show. But it's been a very interesting experiment in trying to make it feel live and theatrical, which is the main point of theater, the essence of theater. And I was more concerned with that than if the show makes any sense, because it's very weird. It's like a dream, and it drives a lot of critics crazy. They're like, this has 9 endings. But we've had great audiences from, Latvia, and Latvians, they're very picky. They don't like much. And 8-year-olds in Colorado, our favorite audience member is an 8-year-old named Cohen, who's seen it 3 times from Colorado. And because, we can control the show, we change it and evolve it. But what's also been fascinating is be able to have these 25 audience members from New Zealand, Lisbon, Bogota, New Jersey, Los Angeles, all at the same time. And then they've been really confused when they see each other at the end, because they didn't expect to be on a Zoom theater show with other audiences from such diverse places. So that way, it's been a really interesting global kind of experiment from our end. That's the basic concept of the Zoom hotel. And the miniatures. I've noticed that I love puppetry and miniatures, but on stage, it's hard to show small things. And on the camera, it's very easy. So we have these miniature like Titanics, and we have the scene where we go into a notebook through a table, and it's just a wonderful vortex to be able to show small things very clear in front of the camera in a theatrical way that make them feel like they're in someone's living room. So that's also been a nice kind of discovery. And we've also, and then I'll shut up and then you guys can ask questions, whatever. A couple theaters, we're gonna be doing this show in November in Boston, even when they think they'll be open again. So that's very interesting. And I know a lot of you are aware of this, but still it fascinates me that the idea that this format can coexist along with regular programming. And what we found is great is we advertised through a theater in Denver, I know, where I was supposed to go with the live show. And a lot of people on their mailing list aren't in Denver, they're in Kentucky or in New York, but they get the email. So then they're like, oh, I can go see this show with the theater in Denver from anywhere, as we know. And that's also been really, really interesting.
Oh, that is an amazing project, already asking so many questions, some of which are quite theoretical, actually. My biggest takeaway is that we have to think about liveness in a very different context in the Zoom age. And what we thought was natural has to be actually created through technologies of mise en scène, which are quite new to our field of theater. So we finally realized that liveness is created, which of course we already knew from live theater as well, but that you kind of put this as an interesting challenge. I think we will have a lot of questions about the project to you a little bit later, and I hope that you will be able to stay connected. I think we will go on to the next speaker to have these first round of short presentations, and then we will circle back to questions about this project and maybe, yes, connections with the other ideas on the table. So Adam, could you please introduce the next speaker?
Our next speaker is from Portugal, and her name is Patricia Paixão. And she works as a producer, creator, and actress, and she's also a member of Teatro Estúdio Fonte Nova, and she's here with us in relation of her very first Portuguese adaptation of the Czech play The White Plague. So Patricia, could you please tell us a little bit about this production?
Yes, so thank you for the invitation, and congratulations for this proposal, which has been very common now, but it's very nice because we start meeting new people and making new contacts. So yes, the White Plague. I have some sort of a relation with the Czech Republic for some time now. I translated into Portuguese RUR, so Universal Rossum Robot. And it was a big adventure. It was the first time in a professional Portuguese theater company that Karel Čapek and RUR went into stage. And then at the first beginning, well, when we started seeing that the country was going into state of emergency, as most of companies, we started developing some activities. Some of them were putting our shows that were previously recorded online. We had talks, but this wasn't enough. So this project, a little bit crazy and also not programmed, because we are the theater that I work for, Teatro Estúdio Fonte Nova, is sponsored by our town hall and the government. But this was a project that was outside this budget. So it was done like in very short time with almost no budget, but with a lot of will of doing what we are doing here, which is to unite and to continue creating, although we are inside our homes. Maybe I will share a presentation just so you can get an idea, and I will present it a little bit more clear. Are you seeing it?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Okay. So we decided to call it Enfermedad Blanca, Doença Branca, and Bila Nemots, to have the 3 languages. And I will do a short presentation of it. So it will be more clear what it meant for us and what it was. So in the spring of 2020, Portugal saw the rise of the pandemics. And as with other cases, the country went into the state of emergency in mid-March. Our company was 2 weeks from premiering a live show, and obviously the situation was new to everyone. Apart from online talks, some pre-recorded shows that we made available, like I said, I started that this wasn't enough. So for some reason, knowing the plot as we do, the White Plague came to my mind. So the White Plague, for some of you who do not know it, it's a play written by Karel Čapek that talks about a world pandemic, and that is born in China. It has many similarities to what we are living now. And it's from 1936, if I'm not mistaken. So in mid-April last year, we started gathering a cast. It started with me, my other colleague from Teatro Estúdio Fonte Nova, actor and director Eduardo Dias, with whom I translated the text into Portuguese, and the Czech writer, director, and actress Anna Luňáková. The 3 of us gave shape to the dramaturgy of the performance. So it was clear that we wanted to create an international stance, something that was not only Portuguese. The cast was pretty diverse. Dr. Julius was played by Eduardo. The Marshal was played by me. These were the main characters, which we cut a lot, the text, so it fit in 1 hour. So it could fit in 1 hour. Ana played the constant journalist that came into scene. Lupe Leal, a Brazilian actor and director, played Dr. Galen. And Inês Adan, a Spanish actor and director living in Canada, played the mother. Carlos Pereira, a Portuguese actor, played the father, and finally the Baron was played by the Portuguese actor Fábio Nóbrega Vaz. And so Doença Branca, Bila Nemots, Enfermedad Blanca was born. We decided to create a sort of manifesto for our performance. Let's call it performance. That went as follows, and I will read it. No, it wasn't in our plans, but there was a desire to do something, to create, to unite, to share, as well as to bring a little more sustainability, a drop for those who have a little less. And there he was, as always, our Chapek, back at us and answering us from a distance of almost a century. We will premiere this challenge with love, joy, commitment, reflection, and criticism, physically distanced, but very close to each other in our hearts. In this enactment of excerpts from the White Plague, we bring together interpreters from different locations and origins. Just as the pandemic is general and global, so is this enactment. Just as we are advised social distancing, we will execute only the physical one. Just as Chapek exposed war and conflict and possibly even the weaknesses of a healthcare system, so will we. We do not know if it is theater, if it is a performance, if it is media art, it is an expression, a manifestation, a reconnection to create. So the performance, which ran for approximately 1 hour, premiered on the 23rd of March with a live streaming from Zoom to Facebook in a co-production with Casa da Cultura, which is called Culture House in Setúbal. And in 2 sessions, we hit nearly 3,000 views with comments from around the globe, which for a small production and also from a small town left us quite satisfied. In terms of dramaturgic options and co-creation, there were some which are worth mentioning, and I will run this quite fast. We all played with the idea that each character was in their own house and with the possibilities that this could offer us. So as rudimentary that could be. So it was our own laptops, our own, we were far from each other. We didn't have a lot of technology available. And this is something that when we talk about the possibility of doing things online, we have to think about which are the resources that we actually have. So the performances started by showing each one of us preparing to getting in the role. Would it be by changing our personal names to the character on Zoom, putting our masks on, we had the mask, or simply getting dressed. The idea of being on Zoom also helped us to interact with the windows. So we were really playing with the idea of this interaction in windows. And we all showed pieces of news that were related to the pandemics in our countries, somehow, health systems, economies, or even the reaction of politicians. At a certain point, a sort of chorus was created. Every time we heard the word pandemics in the text, we all searched for the white spot in our own bodies. So each of us played with technology and technicalities as he or she could. For example, filters were used in the camera to change the lighting. I don't know if I have some picture here that shows this, but for example, in this one on the right corner, you can see that the filter was used to play with this idea. So for example, what was the White Plague for us? As with the text, each character profits from the disease. And in this sense, we wanted to reflect how it could symbolically affect each of them differently. Marshall, for example, had a $sign in her face. So all the performance followed a more humorous and absurd stance from the start. You know, it is true that Chapek mentioned that he standed up for everyone. And perhaps this is why he wrote comedies instead of dramas. We wanted to play with this absurdity. We didn't want to make it very heavy in the time that we were living. So what else can I tell you that isn't? I have a lot more to say, but maybe, I don't know if I have more time or not. Let me know if I can go a little further or if you want to move on and then I add something else further on. Let me know if I have a little bit more time.
I believe we should give some time to the others as well to talk about the projects, and then we'll get back to you.
Okay. So then I will tell you a little bit more of this. But anyway, just to tell you just the final words a little bit to conclude. So this idea of absurdity was played in all along this play. So if it was by the fact that, and we played with our own realities. So for example, with the Brazilian factor, the president, Bolsonaro, told them that some sort of bleach could be used to eradicate this. So in a certain point, to eradicate the disease, the Baron is drinking sif, which is to clean the toilets. I don't know, there's a certain point where the Marshal is mimicking Don't Cry For Me Argentina at the window. So the play ends, the performance ends by, if someone knows the end of Vila Menemots, with the citizens killing Dr. Gallen. And what happens is everyone is changing, obviously, their names to citizen 1, 2, 3, and there is an online bashing of Dr. Gallen that had the cure for the pandemics. So in general lines, this was it. I can tell you a little bit more about this, but you have a little bit of an idea of what happened.
And it's very nice to see your enthusiasm about this project, and I'm sure we're going to have several questions about it. But before that, I'll give the floor back to Attila.
Yes, thank you. Our next speaker, we are nearing back to Europe, and we are very close to each other now, also physically. Next speaker is Tereza Dobiášová from Prague, and also curator, director, and cultural manager. From professional classical acting theater, she fled to theater as a means of social integration. Later, she became a Central European pioneer of children museums. Recently, she concentrates on developing art-based formats for intensive audience participation. So tell us about the project Free Like Birds, developed together with the Italian theater company TPO. Due to COVID cancellations, you created an entirely new version of the script directly for Zoom, first for Milan and then for Czech audiences, which has been performed over 70 times already. According to a review, the show is an online gap for freedom, sharing anxiety, but also joy and hope. Tereza, introduce us to this project.
Hi, good to see you. So Free Like Birds were originally actually a theater project for me after years. Again, really a theater project, but really interactive theater, it was originally for teenagers, and it was dealing with the topics of teenagers, of shame and just becoming adult. And we were developing it quite long. We were playing it also quite long, and we were supposed to play it in Prague National Theatre and in Milano when the COVID came in. And of course, everything was cancelled. At that point, because it was covered from a European grant, and the project was already almost like finishing, and they told us that it would actually be quite nice to do something online. And in the beginning, I thought while I'll be talking, you'll see the trailer to it. And I was first thinking that it was completely impossible, but then I actually realized that really a lot of the actually interactivity techniques we were using were really very simple. And at the same time, as I've been also working internationally and sitting all the time at like video conferences, I just actually realized that maybe I was started thinking like how we could play it in the video conference. So I wrote completely new script. It actually works like that. We actually work with 2 dancers and 1, I would say like online director. And we always play for, let's say, about 25 people in the audience. Actually, everyone works really from their home. And it starts like as if we really would like to play the theater, like, normally. So the dancers start dancing performance, and then just something happens, like something like bad connection or something like that. It just stops working, and they actually reflect. Of course, it's written like also like script, like written text, like that. They're desperate to try to perform over a video conference, that they do not hear each other, that they have problems with timing, that they cannot be together, and that they feel like idiots. And that they really would like to share with the audience something, just like anything. And then they think that they say that maybe they could try to do something together. And so they actually start the audience in advance is asked to have something like to mask themselves. So they actually then the two girls start masking themselves, actually like drawing, painting over their faces. And they also invite an audience to do it with them. And slowly the dancers actually lead them into a kind of improvisation that actually they first like draw on their faces, and then they make them dance, they make them move. Of course, this differs a lot. We usually play for young audience, but we also play for adults. It really varies a lot from a group to group. But I think in 95% of the performances we've played, they really just simply start moving, dancing, and work really as a flock of birds, really playing together, dancing together, which is maybe the most important. And then in the end, they demask themselves, and then they reflect it. And they reflect how it is to be locked in the COVID, how it is to be without social contacts, how it is to be when they cannot simply dance with someone. And simply they reflect what is needed. When we were starting to play this, it was actually, I think, April. We were playing for the audience like around Milano, which was at the time quite critical. So it was quite dramatic, and also the text was quite dramatic in the beginning. And as we were like writing, as we were playing it, I was constantly rewriting the text, actually adapting it to the situation, also to the atmosphere of the situation. And as this actually, I think I wrote about 20 versions of the text. Now the last one is being played already for 2 months, which is already quite a long time. And it goes on, and it's actually quite nice way how to be together with the audience, share and move, and be here in the one moment, which I think is really the real essence of theater.
Teresa, what an exciting project, so different from the previous ones in a way that it's an online group choreography. Is that possible? Is dancing online possible? I'm sure we will have a lot of great questions, and I would like to encourage the audience as well to ask their questions through the Q&A, which we will then interpret and ask the speakers to reflect to. And now I will give back the microphone to Adam to introduce our last presenter.
So last but not least, our fourth speaker is Attila Balogh from Transylvania, who is an actor and director of Szigligeti Theatre in Oradea. And he did not only direct, but also co-wrote the play Why, which premiered during the pandemic online in a very unique and special way. Attila, could you please tell us about it?
Yes, first we wrote a play about, so I have two colleagues who are also very good friends and close to me. We three wrote a play about a Generation Z girl who has in the middle of a crisis in her life. It's about not knowing what's real and what's not, and it's about also being love, or thinking about being in love, or and also the whole thing is about gaps between generations and the isolation of the isolation of a human being. I mean, to be alone, or not knowing what's real and what is not. And then the COVID crisis came, and we found ourselves in a crisis, isolated. So actually, the play was we wanted to be a futuristic musical for the young. So this is what was the main goal, the starting point. Our theater needed something like this, and so the COVID came, and suddenly we have to move to the cyberspace, and according to Romanian regulations, you couldn't play in front of audience anything, but you know, in the cyberspace we don't have limits, and you could make movies. I mean, it was legal to make movies, so we thought that what if we show the whole thing about from the main character's Esther's perspective, the whole craziness of her world, and so suddenly we cut all the so we didn't have much money for it. The whole set we transferred to buy a GoPro and a 5G transmitter and a video mixer. And we have good internet in the theater, stable internet. So, and I really wanted to be live. I mean, it's for me to be. I mean, for the theater is essential for the theater to be live. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. So the whole thing should be live. Then we needed these transmitters, and we built a device on our main character's head. I can show you a bit how it looks. So I'll share my screen so you can see like how it looks. Okay, I think now my screen is shared, right? You can see.
Yes, it is.
So that's a device on her head. That's a GoPro, and back on her head is a 5G transmitter and an accumulator, a battery. So with this you can do the whole thing. And we actually the set was built from scraps because we don't have any money left, and so I'm not a set designer, so I draw it in paint. So here are the space for the viewers, and this blue thing is a screen, is a projector screen, and here is a TV, and here is the set. You can turn around, and it's a table, and there are two mirrors in the end of each, and so the whole thing, what our main character sees, is projected on this screen, and also she can see from the television. So actually, when the regulations would let the viewers in, you can isolate the actors from the viewers like this. So it can be, I don't know, it's safe. It's more safer like this, so you end up and the other thing which we were inspired it's one of our main inspirations is a social robot, Sophia, which I want to show you because I think it's interesting. So she's a social robot, and here you can see on the interview with her. Mainly, she's working with an artificial intelligence. She learns how to express human emotions. So it's a very special thing. So we thought that what if we replace every smart device with a persona. So we ended up like the personas like this. She's Amazonia. She's inspired by Amazon and Siri and Alexa, and so everything what you need in the play, it's carried by her. And we also have like personal assistants, and so we suddenly found ourselves with these drones, human-like drones, which I think represents what represents what these devices are heading to. I mean, they are becoming more and more human-like. And so the whole play is about a family dinner, which our main character shows to her family her final exam, a movie, because she's studying in a media university. So she shows the family her final exam, which is a film about love, which the family doesn't accept like that. And then she runs to her love to a house party, and she gets more lost. I mean, and the whole story is very simple, but actually the main character has always these flashes, these hallucinations and deja vus about the present moment. She doesn't know what's real and what is not. And actually, this method we found with the GoPro and the reflections represents, or how to say, nails for us the whole how to say, when we found out that we now are competing with YouTube, and because we go to the cyberspace, we found ourselves competing with visually very rich images. You see on YouTube, you see on video clips, you see everything is flashing, and a lot of colors always, and a lot of stories, and a lot of parallel universes in this cyberspace. And actually we were trying to show how to feels to be, and how we'll feel, what the future holds for us in this future. Actually, you see the plexi mask on this character. Actually, it's a part of the design, but it's a very practical. It has a very practical use because otherwise we couldn't play because we had to wear masks because of the pandemic. So it's very hard to play with masks. But this plexi masks, I think it's very become not just practical, but it's also symbolic about the isolation which these characters live in. So we sometimes switching from static cameras from the GoPro, because we have sometimes, and we also mixed with pre-recorded images, because we have to change a set so we start the whole play at Esther's, the main character's home. Then she goes to a house party, and between then when the stage workers change the whole set, we actually we show not live pictures. We have a family fight, a flash of a family fight, which goes very crazy, and that is pre-recorded. The fight. It's inspired by it was inspired by action movies like, I don't know, Matrix. You can see Trinity's jump here, or a parody of that, and a bit Tarantino-like action later. So this was needed to change the change the set. Here we actually we go like crazy. The whole thing inspired from first-person shooters and computer games, and suddenly you find yourself in a family therapy commercial. Just a moment to see. So everything goes like very crazy. This one is with effects and pre-recorded and stuff. So you can end up again live in a party. So these are live images from air, from the stage. And well, we had in the premiere we had an ending which was very sad because we had no viewers, so we wanted to show that moment, the empty theater live, how it feels like. And also our last moment is our main character arriving to this present and talking about how she feels now there on the stage without audience. Then suddenly the regulations let the audience in the space, so we changed the whole ending to a commitment about her movie and about stepping out and showing herself to everyone. So you can see here, you could see live from an actor's perspective how to be. I'm using sound here because I don't think it would be too noisy or something, because so the whole craziness ends up here in the present with a commitment with her love in front of the audience. After this whole crazy, flashy images, you end up in the present somehow. This is the I don't know the correct word for the end of the show, the clapping, the finale of the show.
The curtain call. Right?
Yes, so this is the curtain call of the show. And I mean, I don't know, you can hear the silence because this music was a very silent type, but also everyone is like just there. And after you were separated by the actor, suddenly her presence feels very, very refreshing. And you can see the audience is like a bit shocked and silent. Nobody is clapping, just staying there in the moment. Then then there's a moment when the actor yes. So this is a short. I think it's a short presentation of the show, if you agree.
Thank you very much, Attila. And we keep calling these projects theater, but some of you already mentioned, especially Patricia explicitly said that she's not sure that it still can be called theater. And what's your take on this? Can we call it theater? And of course, the question goes to all of you, but I'm mainly looking at Thaddeus because earlier this week, you sent us some material about Zoom Hotel. And you sent us a description of your project written by a critic who said that it is genuine theater, even though it defies all the definitions of its form. And I believe this description gives a very interesting point about theater. What is theater? What is not theater? Is it theater?
Hi. Well, yes. See, if you look at the Peter Brook book, An Empty Space, Octavian, who wrote that thing about Zoom Hotel, his statement is very similar to Peter Brook's first line is, I'm not sure I agree with it, but it says, to make active theater, one person needs to just watch another person walk across the stage, right? And so that's just about the essence of, watching something happen in front of us, right? So in that way, I don't think at first I believed it's possible to make theater in this way, but after the experience of doing this Zoom Hotel project, it's a different type of theater, but the essence can be captured, is what I've experienced, especially from not only the perspective of the audience, but as the performer. Because like I said, when I begin the show, I have to set up the room, the Zoom Hotel room that I play in, as the regular theater, with all the things in the right place. And in the United States, they have all these silly rules, where a half hour before the show is when you meet the stage manager as an actor, you have to show up. So I open the Zoom chat early, and literally 1/2 hour before the stage manager appears on the screen, oh, hey, what's up, Thaddeus? Like they just walked into the room, right? Oh, what are you doing today? How's it going? How many people did Donald Trump kill today? Blah, blah, blah. We're talking about whatever. How's your son? I'm making sure the props are in place. He checks the sound. And then he gives me a 15-minute call. That means we're going to start at 15 minutes, then 10, then 5. So all that's very normal theater. Then I leave the room. There's another monitor downstairs where I can sign in so I can see the audience. And then when I hear the cue, to start the music cue, we use Bolero. When it rises, I enter the room as if I'm walking on stage. And so that, from my perspective, feels totally real. I'm a little bit nervous if there's a critic in, or, some more Latvians because they're so serious. No, I like to make fun of the Latvians. I don't know why. They're so serious. They're always in black, but and then you feel nervous and if something goes wrong, if, I mess up the magic trick, if I don't do it right, you feel nervous like you would in a normal show. And I think that realness that I feel performing also makes the audience feel like this is real and live. So in that way, the essence, I think, can be captured. And again, what's so extraordinary is you can bring in all these people from different places in the same time. And going back to the thing that started the whole conversation about, the climate crisis and that, you kind of have a way to not travel so much, not that we should stop traveling, but for example, the show, since the theaters are open in Spain, the show Antropoceno that I directed last year in Spain, we're gonna do it next 2 weeks in Madrid. So we start rehearsals, but they're not gonna waste the money, and I'm not gonna go on a plane. So I'll rehearse it on Zoom, and we're actually the show was not that good, but now it's gonna be fantastic because we figured out there's a middle point in the show where if we change it to the arrival of the pandemic, we do the whole second half of the show in the pandemic. But what's so crazy is I have to rehearse it in the confinement of the pandemic in a way. So there's something happening that's very interesting. And you could see all of those in the elements of these other projects, which I'm very excited to see Patricia's and Teresa's and Attila's, if the videos are available or you guys can send them to us. That there is some kind of social interaction and artistic communication and connection are also important. That I think, with Netflix and movies, people are getting bored and even Zoom calls. And that's why I've noticed audiences have been very interested in these projects because of that connection comes back. And there's the convenience of you could be cooking dinner and then, I'll put my son to bed in costume and then go in the other room and do the show. Like, that's really crazy, you know? So yes, it's possible in some strange way.
So we heard your take on capturing the essence of theater, but I would like to know the others' take as well. What do you think is the essence of theater that you tried to capture and adapt into the online space?
Maybe I can add in the continuation of Thaddeus. I can add, he mentioned connection, but I would mention also, and I think in these times, and especially since the pandemic started, and it's normal, we started seeing a little bit more menaced and a little bit more threatened in terms of our rights as artists. And how can we be sustainable? So I would add the word solidarity. I think there's the word solidarity, but there's also the constant need and the very present need to continue to create and to continue to communicate. And may it be in between us workers of the arts, as I like to call, and not artists, but also with whoever's watching, the audience, whatever we like to call it. So I think this question of dialogue and solidarity is in creation is very present, and also to deal with somehow the loneliness, because not all of us, the fact is that, for example, rehearsals are allowed in Portugal. But for example, we are in the second state of emergency now in Portugal, and we were the same show that we were supposed to premiere live when we went into pandemic, into state of emergency last year, was the same we were going to premiere right now. And 2 days before the premiere, we went into state of emergency. So I don't know what is going on. But the fact is that we had 2 members of our team with COVID-19, and we couldn't do it anyway, even if we didn't go. So the thing is, there's the threat, let's call it threat, is real. There is a disease. We can't go away from it. But how can we deal with it? Even if we can't play it live, how can we play it? And just to contextualize in Portugal, and why we said or wrote in the manifesto that we do not know if it's theater, if it's media art, what it is, because there were some voices from a more classic theater, let's call it this way, or known theater companies in Portugal that came very critical at the beginning of the pandemic when this new proposal started, that we can't replace theater in our venues with this. And it's obvious that we can't replace, and it's obvious that everyone wants to go back to the venues as soon as they open. But meanwhile, not all of us feel comfortable being silent and waiting. Some of us want to continue showing and sharing. So, and that's it.
Thank you. And what about you, Teresa? What was your sense of theater that you wanted to capture?
You know, if Thaddeus didn't mention the Peter Brook definition of theater, I would mention it. Just someone is presenting something or showing something and the other is watching. But something, I think, what lies in the undertext, what Brook didn't really poke out because it was so natural for him at the moment, was the social contact, or the natural interaction. You simply feel the other being there. Even if you play in really big theaters, you really feel the audience and the being presence here in the moment and just something happening. That's the essence for me. So, well, you know, I'm a little bit maybe different than most of theater people because I'm not so interested in just presenting like stories or pictures, showing them. Like, you know, I love theater, but I'm not so interested in doing it myself. I'm really interested in the really intensive social exchange, in the really, interaction. So also when working like through Zoom, what we were really looking for were how we can interact, how we can feel the audience, how we can be together. And this is what we experimented with. You have a screen, you can hear the people, you can see them. And like, how can we be in this? Like, not to be boring, not to be bored. How can we also go over just only speaking, as we all do on the video conferences, you know, just speaking heads? Like, how can we really be more human together, like in more senses, when we don't feel ourselves physical? So this was what I was really the most interested in. And I think that Zoom or these like live formats, this is the element which make the difference between streaming or between films. And I think that's what it connects it with the real theater. And I think this is also what we should look for when we just develop these formats and when we go on with them. Maybe it can be just really in a detail, but I think it needs to be there. You just simply need to feel the audience, be with them, and maybe also react on them when possible.
What you have just said is deeply rooted in the main question of this webinar, which of course is the relationship between the artist and the audiences. And I believe one of the biggest positive effects of this pandemic is that even those who do not live near a theater can, quote unquote, go to the theater now in the online space. And I'm actually one of them, as I live in a small village. So from my perspective, theater is much more available than it was before. So I can say that my connection with theater is stronger now, but that's my perspective. And I really want to know the opposite point of view, the aspect of the creators as opposed to the theater goers. Do you think this connection is stronger now or weaker, or how does it differ from the pre-pandemic times?
I mean, I would say for me, it's just different, you know? Like, I think it's a transition, obviously, between, you know, what they were saying in the main theaters in Portugal, you know, no, don't do anything because we don't want this to be a replacement. On the other hand, have you guys read the online theater manifesto by Wang Chang? I think is his name. He's from Shanghai, and I think he's from the Teatro RE. And he wrote this one-page online manifesto, and he did Waiting for Godot in Wuhan, live in front of these fish tanks, and they had 300,000 people in China watch it. And he's like, this is cheaper, you can get more people to watch it, this is a new thing, so you can either do it or get left behind. It's really crazy. It's like a really cool manifesto. In a way, he proposes really nice things. But it's just different. So I don't think it's, you know, better or worse. I think what's important and what's so interesting about all these projects is there's a difference when people I had to translate a show we already made called Inflatable Space for a festival in Norway to like a movie. And that didn't work. That was not fun at all because we really just had to try to make a theater play filmed into a movie with very little money. And then they projected it on the screen in Norway. And that was very unsatisfying because it was trying to take a fixed thing that's for a live stage and put it on video. But all these projects that really embrace the format, you know, and Attila is just really interesting. What's that called? Attila, I don't remember. Why?
Why, yes.
Yeah, is, for example, if the theaters were open again, completely, how interesting would it be to offer the live stream of the main actor having the GoPro on her head for audiences around the world during the live show?
Yeah,
so
we did exactly that.
Perfect. Yeah, so I mean, that's super interesting to think about weird online interactive elements for audiences during regular stage shows. So if you're really interested in that theater company, I mean, that means I'm, you know, on vacation here by the Colombian coast, I could watch it, now tonight, and I may watch Peter Nicol in Prague tonight to show my son, who's on with Alfred Dvořák, that's something very extraordinary. Like, for example, I've seen 3 puppet shows from Prague with my son that they film really nice and perform live. And when we put them on the TV, we just watch after eating pancakes, these shows like we're in Czech Republic, So again, I'm just repeating myself, so I'll shut up now.
I just maybe wanted to add something else on the continuation of what Thaddeus is saying. I don't know how is it in your countries, but at least in Portugal, what I feel also is that our national television, with with the context of pandemics, also reinforced a little bit all the programs that they had in relation to theater. So even in online, we have something called RTP. RTP is our national television. RTP Play. The contents online, I think, are reinforced in also the relation to companies that are offering something a little bit different. For example, when the state of emergency opened, the first one, there were shows that were played on the venues and at the same time were being transmitted to the online, but the people that were seeing them online had like some Easter eggs or some different interaction that the ones that were on the venue did not have. So also this opened a little bit of a Pandora box of a relation and communication with technology a little bit different.
I think that the whole nature of interactions are being refreshed in a way in these times, because I think that one of the most important things usually, so when we, for example, we engage in a conversation. For example, now we are engaged in a conversation and we are here together, right? I mean, in a way, we are together here. We have a common conversation and that's our common ground, and we are engaged to that ground and we are together in it. And I think the theater usually works the same, even if it's there and live. You usually engage to somebody's illusion. Like, for example, Shakespeare's illusion about Romeo and Julia, or any other illusion. You are engaged with your fantasy and empathy, right? And I think you can do this also in the cyberspace, also on Zoom, because if you can reach that common ground, that illusoric fantasy world, I don't know how to say it, but what we have in common now, because yes, you can be there and you can enjoy it and you can engage in it. So I think with this pandemic refreshes not just in theatrical ways, but also in many ways these connections. And suddenly, I think I personally think that this has a happy part and this has a sad part for me, because you can find yourself in a way ultimately alone, because if you can be engaged to that many parts and that many people, if you just find yourself in a room, it's like you're how to say, it's like you find yourself always locked inside of you. I don't know how to say it. And this whole easy connection also suddenly also reflects our loneliness to us back, I think. And I think this pandemic in this way raises a whole lot of new era of questions about what does it mean to be present. And I think that you can find ways, and you should find ways even in theater. I mean, that's it's an evolving live art. I'm sorry to speak this common, very how to say, easy digested things, but it's mainly it's a common place for us to meet theater, and can be done like this in Zoom.
Just to reflect on this, do you think we can speak about a Zoom scenography? Do you see it as a powerful medium to create new theater content or intermedia content? Because we were speaking about talking heads, and of course Zoom is part of our lives now, and it's often confined to talking heads, so we are kind of losing our sense of our bodies. And the way you present, the ideas you presented in scenography, try to somehow transgress this idea and create some sort of presence and maybe some connection with each other through interactivity, or connection with our body through like instructions and maybe choreography. So what is your take on how Zoom or Zoom scenography could maybe transgress this idea of us being enclosed in our little boxes? And do you think this is possible? So do you think it can become a field in the future, and will it have its own
yes, and I think it has a new special kind of aesthetics. What I want to talk about in this matter, that I find it that there is a middle golden way for some artistic things like theater or movies, or there is a middle way about how as a viewer, how you are called, how much it hooks and needs your fantasy to complete the stuff. So it has to have space for the viewer's fantasy. It's my opinion. I mean, if you show them ready-made everything, I think it's not engaging, because then you can sit there like a zombie, just consuming the product, and doesn't need anything. You don't need to think. You don't need to ask questions. You don't need to use your fantasy to imagine. Like, for example, in the Tom and Jerry cartoons, you know, the Afro-American mother woman who's always the feet is shown. I don't know if you are. Do you know if I'm what I'm talking about? So the missing part is your imagination, and you always. I mean, these aesthetics. It's for in these aesthetics. I think it's very important to not show the. More than her feet and her good voice, and that is a middle way, a good way, which it needs you to complete the whole picture. And I think in this matter, so you don't have to just stay and consume in front of your screen. It always have to be a balance in this. So it remains theater also in the engaging, the fantasy engaging and fantasy training way. I don't know how to say it otherwise. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, this is.
Or was I close?
Yeah, it's basically that question. How can we think about new scenography for Zoom? What about the others? How did you find these forms? How did you find these ways of interacting with this medium? And what were the experiences?
Well, so here's what we did is when I worked with an artist who also does some set design, and I'm very design focused in my work. So I will work with designers, but I design myself because I studied action transformative design in Damu in Prague, actually. So with Zoom Hotel, I again went against all my principles. My theater is not very realistic, but we wanted to use the realism of the room. So we curated the room and we said, what would be in this motel room like a movie? What paintings, what things on the wall? So we designed very specifically a painting of the Mojave phone booth, which is a phone booth in the middle of the desert in California that people started to call. It was one of the first internet things back in 2000. So we have this really nice painting that Stephen Dufala, the designer, made. So I first made it, and it's all based on the spacing of the room. So I made it on cardboard first, based on the distance between the camera at the right angle to track, and then sent it to him in Philadelphia in the United States. And he made a beautiful painting that flips to become another phone booth, and sent that painting, during the pandemic to Colombia through the secret cargo company in Miami. So we were very conscious of doing very specific zoom scenography of every wall. And then we also painted the corner where my bed is in the set has red, and those lines there are places where I know when to stop the camera to pan to get a new shot, like a movie. And then everything on the floor, the audience doesn't see. So that's a mess. So I can throw things there until we bring the camera to the floor. But that's how we can go from the table down to my head on the floor, which the audience has no idea how we did that. It's totally stupid. I'm just on the floor on a pillow. But the whole thing, and that was again with the actual dimensions of what the camera could capture. So and we had to work with the colors, because although our connection is pretty good, not everyone is as good. So we worked with grays and reds and certain flat colors to try to make a really clean looking image of each moment for the audience. But then it's really nice what Attila was saying about leaving the audience imagination open is, and a lot of American critics have problems with this, it starts to get really weird and not make sense, because we throw these connections out there about communication and trying to reinvent things when everything's closed. So it starts to get really bizarre, the show, but we kind of like that. So we leave the other half of the woman, above her legs, Tom and Jerry's mom, you know what I mean? So the audience is kind of imagining what that is. And again, we have some families come because people are looking stuff to do with their kids. And one little kid was like, "Did you mean to mess with my head so much?" Because, and that was just really perfect, because I don't think, in that way, I feel very proud of what we've done, because it's a little bit subversive in that, in trying to be very communicative and accessible to audiences, we also made something fairly experimental and weird. So it tricks them into think they're going to see something quite normal, but then it's not normal at all. But again, the design has been, and I'm thinking of another project that again would use a whole wall, but again, it's designing the whole thing specifically for where the camera could go and what it can see and how. And that means it's a theatrical transformative scenography, but using the idea of film and cameras. Michael Gondry uses a lot of that in his regular movies that are really cool. The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or whatever that one is, does these crazy sequences where they're like running with the camera through these really rough theater sets and showing things in a very kind of visceral, rough way. So in that way, it's been really fun to try to make a specific set design for the camera and live transmission.
Thank you. Teresa, when you were showing us your trailer, there were moments where the audience could feel that there is a choreographed, a composed picture that probably is shared by all the participants, and then you probably give instructions to the individual members how to follow to create this kind of shared image. How did you, to what extent was this actually choreographed, and to what extent were you composing these images in view of what you are required as a spectator to do, and what the effects will be on like this shared screen that everybody sees?
Well, of course, to some extent, we work with also with scenography, but also with choreography, but only to some extent, because we really were working, like each of the dancers are at their home. So we basically work with flight, with placing the camera, with distance to the camera, with, just like changing the intimacy to really like longer, I don't know how do you say it, like in a distance look. But that what you were mentioning, of course, when the two dancers dance together, so there is a choreography which is choreographed really to the, to the camera. But when there is the interaction with the audience, I think that's what you meant. So that's basically the audience actually creating the choreography online in the moment. So, and then, the dancers actually show to the audience that they can experiment with it, that they can come close to the camera, or they can go far, or they can go left, or they can go right. They don't have to sit, that they can stand up. They just show them like basic language they can use, and they trigger the play. So then what you then saw, that the people were just disappearing and reappearing. So basically that was what the audience created in this particular run. They do it actually often, that they actually play with the cameras, that they try what they can do, how they can react on themselves. And of course, when it works the best, so they start all moving in some way which is connected. That because sometimes when you are out of the camera, you don't see what the others do. So it takes some time before you reappear. But if you are in some flow, you can somehow predict what will come next. And you just can do it. It's like an improvisation. And these are probably like the strongest moments of sharing. And so everything, like all the, what the girls wear on themselves, how they mask themselves, how they work with the camera, I actually all used in a way to be actually as human and as close to the audience as they can be in this environment, like to be really together. So I'm very minimalistic in scenography, and also very minimalistic in choreography.
Teresa, what I really like about your approach is that I think it overcomes a huge problem with the online space, because they say that it's harder to pay attention for a longer time when you are online, but this interaction helps everyone overcome it. And I really want to know if the others attempted to make steps to help the audience pay attention, because when they are in a theater, the seats are in the dark, they are forced to look at the stage, but when they are sitting in their living rooms, they can be distracted so easily.
Can I answer this? We had a lot of effort to keep the viewers' attention, and the whole thing went a bit too well when the viewers who were present and sitting in the first 3 rows, they were like a bit seasick, become seasick, and they had to go out to the restroom to get fresh air or something, because in a big screen, this whole flashy moving stuff was very, very over shocking, or I don't know how so it went. I think we went a bit too far about keeping the audience's attention. So we tried it with this, and yes, we had to a bit chill down the camera. Suddenly, it was too much. Sorry for interrupting.
I wanted to add, just in terms of scenography in this pandemic and the quarantine made me think a lot about the question of public and private space, and how do we use, or how do we reflect on public and private space in our own venues in theaters. In fact, I don't know if it's an issue in other countries, but here in Portugal, for a company to have its own space to present, it's not easy. It's something that sometimes it takes a lot of years. You need to have the right amount of bureaucracy taken care of, infrastructure. It's not, in terms of legal issues. And the fact is, I started thinking about this with Zoom right now, that if you are in the scenography that you were asking about, we can explore every little detail of our own houses. Okay, this can be an exploration, but why no one forbidden us to go into the street, right? So this is something that we can do also with theater. We can film and then transport it into the venue. But actually in Zoom, you can actually be on the street or on a public space and then show it live to the audience. Also, another thing that I was thinking about is this connection with different technologies, which makes this relationship seems much more natural. I mean, in the White Plague, in Doença Branca, we used everything, like from the camera. We used our laptops, but then we screened it from also the cell phone, and then we were filming our television, showing some pieces of news, and then we were showing. So like this interaction of how you can screen it and what you can film from your screen is also a language, is also a dialogue that you're making here. And finally, you can cut very easily, and obviously it's very rudimentary, but for example, the character of the marshal, like a villain, you only saw her face at the end. So during the whole time she was like this. So you only saw the hands and you saw her folding the underwear. And then only at the end, when she showed that she had the white disease, the white spot, she was seen. So this is also helps in terms of scenography, I think.
And also you can inspire from the computer game genre, because you said that it's hard to pay attention online. In computer game world, it's not true. People can pay attention 12 hours without eating or even sitting up from the table in computer games, in first-person shooters, in role-playing games, so no problem. And we also, for example, we also use the computer games as an inspiration of how could it work, how could this space work.
But if I may, to do so, you really have to use really aggressive content. And that's an issue for me. So, because also like watching your show, it's too much for me in the moment. Like I couldn't watch it in the theater. I would leave in a few minutes. Sorry, it's just like not about that it's bad, but it's just like too much for me.
I see.
So, and also like the other thing with, well, maybe that's also, well, you know, like I started working, this project started really addressing teenagers. And because they are growing up on the, you know, on this PC games and on this kind of content, it's basically extremely difficult to be in touch with them live because they just are like swallowed in these pictures. And sometimes it's really too hard to be in any contact for them, also for their teachers, often for their parents. So I had to look for really close ways how to get touch to the audience. And I also think that maybe art should empathize or, you know, like to find ways how to be sensitive again. And you also spoke about a loneliness, about a question of loneliness in these times. And that's actually what's a little bit for me in conflict with using the content which can be so aggressive, because that makes you feeling more alone.
I think it depends of your approach, because for example, if you try to approach a lonely or depressed person, sometimes you can start it by reaching on his ground. I mean, to going on his ground, his or her ground first. And if you you don't have to start like that, but you can start like that. And for example, this project is a bit like a gesture, like if you are young and you see this, you see that. I mean, we can show that we know how you feel, and we can feel it too, and that doesn't make you alone. It's the opposite. You can see that what you feel is not, you are not alone with those feelings. But we try to approach it from a different way. We try to approach it accepting that aggressive way, accepting that that the presence of that imagery, not to contradict them. For example, myself, I'm a bit how to say, I'm not a usual person in that way, that for example, I play computer games, I play them a lot, and I also do theater, and I also do acting and directing, so I know a lot of I've been a lot of spaces in that way, and I think I find sometimes myself to easy connect, so I don't have to, I don't know, but I don't seem to have problems with this. And I want to say that we were trying to, in this show, we were trying to connect them in their way. And some very strange thing happens because about the gaps between the generations. For our young viewers, the whole thing was natural for them. I mean, they understood the droids. They are droids. She's the smartphone. She's the Alexa. He's the news. For them, the whole thing was very self-explanatory and natural. And for example, when a teacher come with the children, their teacher was scared and said that the whole world we present is bizarre. And I said that I know that from his point of view is bizarre, but I think from a young person's point of view, it's very, very natural. And we found that it is. Young people take this very easy and natural, and they just, I know. I mean, the hard part was for them to don't lose their attention. They are so used to a lot of impulses.
I wanted to add something. I don't know if it's a little bit off topic or not, but it's something that has been on my mind for a while now because of the context of the society also that we live in. And I haven't seen your show, Attila, but I feel that sometimes we are a little bit, how to say, socially correct with violence or morally correct with violence. And we forget that all of us, we all have in ourselves violent impulses, violent pulses, right? And how do we direct this? And for me, violence is a very interesting topic because it makes sometimes, and we think about civil movements, makes things go forward. And maybe we are going a little off topic, but the fact is this pandemic has taken a toll on mental health as well. And what it does sometimes, it puts people down in a passive way. So we do not have the will to react, we get passive. And sometimes if we get angry, if we hit our fist on the table, it's a sign that we want to move forward, whatever it is. Even if we, sometimes I see myself dancing alone in whatever it is, but some feeling which is more active and reactive. So I think it's interesting also when we think about these, may it be aggressiveness or violent pulses, do they make us, do they manifest in a way that make us also think about our, like you were saying, interior selves? So in our collective selves in society.
I really like these different approaches because it truly represents that there are several attitudes hidden within this project. And it goes to the attitude towards the pandemic as well. Because, for example, Patricia's project shows us a pandemic. Attila's project, even though it does not reflect on the coronavirus pandemic, it still represents very relevant issues of the new generation. While I think that Thaddeus and Teresa tried to create a safe space, a place where the audiences can have fun and can escape from the horrors of reality. So based on this, what exactly do you think the role of theater is during such a difficult time?
Well, I just want to state something I've noticed very interesting in our project, Zoom Hotel. Right when I check into my room, I'm looking around the room and within like 5 minutes, the door is gone. We have a trick where we bring down a fake wall and it's completely not there anymore. So there's no more door. So on one level, that's very scary, you know, and that's a metaphor for, you know, everything stopping. And it's really interesting because I can try playing it different ways. If I play it like very scared, like the door's gone, where's the door? It gives a much darker tone to the whole performance. Whereas if I just say it casually, like it's a surrealist movie or a dream, you know, like, well, hey, because I call the receptionist and I say, you know, hey, the door's gone, everything's fine, but the door's gone. And they're like, well, it's under maintenance. We're going to put it in later. We don't know when. You know, it has a much lighter tone. But there's a moment in the show, you could see in the video a little bit, where we project all these shadows on the ceiling. And that's an expression of all the people that are dying because of the virus. And that's taken from Christian Boltanski's work, the French artist, who would hang little light bulbs in shadows and project them in galleries. So in a way, we have a balance of playing with very scary imagery and very confinement things, but sometimes we find if we present it lighter, then, you know, if people are in that mindset, they can be down a more scary road watching the show, but if not, they can enjoy it more as this weird, fun movie. So in a way, we're trying to play with the both. But we found that sometimes if we go too dark, it really depends when and what's going on, you know? So, but it's definitely a conscious balance of, you know, that kind of thing, you know? And what's bizarre about what we're doing is completely, for the most part, self-produced. So what pays for everything is actually ticket sales. It's so bizarre. So it's almost like I'm running it like an off-Broadway producer in a way, is we got to sell the tickets. We don't have to sell many, but that's how we're making a living. That's how I'm paying my people, you know? So it's trying to, again, it comes to that subversive nature of how to make something that's accessible and fun, but also speak on the topics of what's happening.
And what about you, Patricia? Because you chose this play that is about a pandemic. When you chose this one, did you feel like it was your role, your job, to create a platform to talk about these issues, or it was just something you wanted to do?
I think if it's my role or my job, I'm not sure if it's my role or my job. It seems very, very heavy in that sense. I think what we tried to do was, first of all, there's a saying which I really like from permaculture, that is, if it's not fun, it's not sustainable. So what we tried to do in a sense was also to have fun. And I think in a way to have this, like it was already mentioned here, to have a connection. And this connection was made with a text that has almost 100 years, but at the same time, how could we reflect on it in our contemporary society? So we also went to pick, like I said in this introduction, we also went to pick pieces of news of how our political context in our health system was dealing with, in also our cultural system in a way, was dealing with the pandemics in our own countries. So it's obvious that we can't detach that from ourselves. Like we would include this extra little bits on the text. Obviously, Čapek doesn't have it there, but we made it ourselves. How could we, each one of the co-creators, which was something that we wrote, this was a co-creation, could appropriate the text for ourselves. And also there was this stance from the beginning of being humorous, of being absurd, of playing with the tragedy of human life, but laughing about it in a way. We know it's a serious subject, but every serious subject, may it be a war, may it be a disease, has in it power relations. And there are always power relations which are involved. May it be in the white plague, it's more related to politics, and there's a war behind. It was before the Second World War. And then there's the health, who discovers the cure and who has the cure, and what can it be done with the cure. So there are all these power relations also with the baron in the market, like he produces the guns. So how could we see this applied to our contemporary society? Which power relations are we talking about, and how can we in a way also ridicule them, and by making fun of them, we also enlarge them in a way.
I'd maybe like to actually connect to what Tadeusz said. Also in the Free Like Birds, there are, we've actually had quite wide scale of how the performance, in fact, like what kind of appeal it had. Sometimes we have really, really like, you know, sad performances when everyone is crying. Sometimes we have really like, you know, funny ones. It's actually like the one you saw, like when everyone is dancing. Sometimes it was mainly like when the pandemics was starting. So it was quite, it was very sensitive, like to talk about COVID at all. It was everything so fresh. So it was just like really, and I think this is what like theater can still do, and what is really important to keep. That, and that's what Tadeusz said, that when he as an actor, he has a concrete situation which can be played really like darkly, but also as a fun. And he chooses as the actor in the moment how he will perform it. He actually chooses the balance, like which is relevant for now and here. And I think this is like what we really need to do, whatever we do. And this is maybe also why I actually chose quite simple structure, and why we are still rewriting it and adapting it. Because I think that we really, through the theater, like when you have a film, you have like a ready storytelling, a perfect one, and you cannot change anything. But when you play theater live, like every single play, every single performance can be different and can mirror or reflect what's going on, and can maybe help somehow to go through it or digest it or reflect it or just be in it. And I think that's very precious, and that's what we need to keep in this time.
Maybe just to react to that, to this liveness and the interactive nature of these performances, or potentially interactive, I'd like to ask, and maybe to elaborate a little bit on what Thaddeus has said at the beginning, that in this new medium, you kind of need interaction to confirm liveness of the events. So how do you see those performances which use live interaction with the audience? How crucial do you see the reactions of the audience to be in your dramaturgy? And to what extent could the audience really influence how the show is born, or how the story evolves. And for the others who don't really have this necessarily this live interaction with the audience, what ways do you find to interact with the audience? Do you want to address them in any new ways, like through chats, through other ways of giving you feedback? And do you think it's important to use these new ways of the two-way communication with the spectators that is offered even more through this medium than in regular auditorium theater?
Well, I'll just say, I mean, you know, it's very bizarre because for Zoom Hotel, we put in audience reaction as part of the performance, right? And even I started in September and we just stopped in February. Every weekend for 4 months we played, and we'll start to play again in 2 weeks. But we still haven't figured out the balance because we're getting there. And some people don't have any problem with it. But what's interesting is, you know, I'm in a cinematic space. We put in music, so there's no audience, right? But then all of a sudden I drink this whiskey or some weird drink in the motel, and then I can see them. Yeah. So then I'm talking to them. And one thing we tried to do, this guy named AJ Wazabad, who's the, I'm not sure how to say his last name, but he's light designer for Robert Wilson. And he's a friend of mine. And he saw it and he was like, what you should maybe do is ask everyone to leave their microphones on. So you don't have to like ask them to turn it on during the show. But the problem with that comes to, you know, are the lawyers from California watching the show, they're talking about a meeting because they're at home. You know what I mean? So then if their mic, you know, but we're thinking of maybe very specifically asking them, go into a quiet space, close the door. This is going to be live and leave the mic on. So there's the fluidity of the performance can continue and not stop when you say, okay, now I'm going to interact with you. And now I'm going to go back into this weird dream. So in a way, we're still working on how to do that because there's moments when I specifically show them the map and they can guess which room I'm in, which is just a kind of fun magic trick. But the director, who's my wife, who's over there, was like, we have to make it more metaphorical. So we have these fights with the magician of like, we reveal the magic by saying we're still trapped in a way. And then there's this card trick moment where I find people's cards like magic, you know? So we integrate that into the meaning of the performance and connecting each person individually. But we're even trying to think of how I can gather the 25 people's cards, because we do a thing that Attila did. I discovered the same trick. Is there's a moment where we have to change the set. And so we actually go to pre-recorded. And we made the pre-recorded moment in the play kind of rough, so it looks completely live, because there's some mistakes in there, right? So there's some mistakes. I rearranged the camera, which, you know, but literally I'm resetting everything else. But I want to see if the stage managers can send me everyone's cards that they picked and set them all up. So the last camera shot could be everybody's cards, you know, things like that. So it's definitely weird. And some friends of mine have been like, I don't like the interaction part. I just want to watch. But I disagree, because I love the kind of bringing the people in, you know, but I think it depends, you know, on because Teresa's show is all based on that. You know, the whole thing only exists on the interaction and participation of the audience. And ours sometimes, you know, people can have their camera off if they want. They just watch, and they're not even present at all. So, you know, it's definitely a challenge. But again, with such a small audience, you know, I've noticed when I'm watching a show, if I want to watch it, but I have to help make dinner and stuff, I can just have it on in the corner, like I would be watching the news, which is a little bit not fair, but it allows me to at least see what the people are doing. And they don't know I'm not totally in the room watching it. Whereas if I have to write something or do something, you know, I'll be more part of the thing.
I also want to add that, for example, one of the shows that I've seen during quarantine was one where in Zoom has this capacity that it has a lot of tools in it. It's not only these windows. We can go into private rooms. So into, I don't know what's the name in English, but you can select the rooms. So one of the shows that I've seen played with this. Some of the audience members went into the private rooms, and the actor was interacting with them, and then we came all back to the normal viewing. So this is also something that can be done to engage more. So
one time, like 2 weeks ago, we did have now we have power outage, but even where I live, there's very few power outages. But there was one, it only happened once during the show. And we knew it was some woman's birthday or whatever. So basically I disappeared from the show. Like there's no more show. And then these people are left alone with no show, but they're together. And it was really crazy because they started talking to each other and like doing their own thing and finding out where they were all from and stuff until I appeared back on, you know, and then we continued. But in a way that made me think of different ways to get the people to be together in a more official way than just me disappearing, or maybe I fake disappear. But I really disappeared for 10 minutes. It was completely gone. Like no more show, but the audience was left alone, which was really kind of interesting.
I want to add a thing to this, that we should not forget also the rehearsal part of theater, that usually when we rehearse, sometimes as an actor you imagine the public, so you in this way you are in this crazy way you are not playing alone. In Hungarian we say performing also, we use the word play. So in Hungarian we play the games, we play theater, we play everything. And so you even if you are rehearsing, for example, a monodrama or something, you are not alone because you are there with your imaginary friend, the imaginary viewers. And what I want to add here, that I really like to use the word spirit. And like Teresa said, I would claim that every show has its own spirit. Like every tonight had a different spirit. Tomorrow maybe we'll have a different spirit. It's because it's live, you know. It's like a child. You can influence it, but you can't, you know, precisely make it. I think that the spirit of a show is like this. It's there. You can influence it, but you cannot. You really cannot change it. For example, if there is an actor who loves his part, or there's an actor who hates his part, you can sometimes feel it I don't know, as a viewer, you can sometimes feel it. This very elusive, very undescribable feeling. For example, I wanted to say that if the show's spirit is different if it's live. Like, for example, even if for example, in our premiere, it was like a rehearsal, but you imagined the viewers, but the viewers were also there. I don't know if your imagination fit to the reality, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's in theater. So, but the spirit of the show, you can feel it, that is live, and I think it's a very, very important thing in this matter, because as an actor, you know, as a theater actor, if you do just film, it's sometime. I mean, if you know that what you are doing is not live, it loses a bit of this spirit. I wanted to add this to the live theater.
Nearing the end of the discussion time, so maybe what is your idea about the future? Will this form of virtual theater stay with us once we are over this pandemic, or will it just be a nightmare or a nice dream that we had? Do you think some forms or some knowledge we learned would stay with us also in regular theater?
And also I would like to add to that question that even if the pandemic is over, but this form of theater stays, would you still like to do it, or are you more keen on going back to the theater?
Well, for me, it's very interesting because like I said, I'm doing Zoom Hotel from my studio. So for me, I want to do the both, you know, and it's been very bizarre because I mentioned this at the beginning, but this theater in Boston wants us to do Zoom Hotel, which is weird because then I have to think, okay, when's it time for sure I'll be here? Now, at this point, I'm assuming we'll be here for a while, but, you know, I'm supposed to direct the thing in Sweden in the September, October. So that means I can't do Zoom Hotel then because I'll be in Sweden and Zoom Hotel in Colombia. So that's really crazy to say when I have to be able to be at home to do a show. And again, like I said, this theater is starting to do, they want to do both kinds of programmings where, you know, you'll look at their season, you'll see, oh, this would be online or this will be live, you know, or like Attila's type of show. I love that idea of like, you get to watch what the actor's seeing anywhere in the world while everyone else is watching it live. There's a certain kind of hybrid that, again, because Adam was saying he's in the village and now he has all these things more accessible. So I think the things that take away are the possibilities of online performance as its own thing, obviously not a replacement, to reach wider global audiences, but still within the context of being back in regular live theaters, you know? So it definitely, it's a way to make a new form has emerged that I think has enough potential that it will exist kind of as its own thing or a different way to be, you know, and maybe it will get even more popular when we can go back into the theaters, into offices and things and whatnot, because people will be less tired. But I found that audiences don't have a problem with Zoom as much as artists because they're stuck on it all the time. But audiences use it for meetings and stuff. So then when they actually see like a live show on it, they think it's pretty cool because they haven't been seeing stuff like that. So I think it has opened up a door to a lot of possibilities that will live in the two worlds together.
I see our type of, I see theater as a very, very organic thing. I think that theater always finds a way and always uses every piece of art. I mean, you cannot name a type of art which theater cannot use. It uses performance, movies, music, everything. And you see those pictures about, for example, abandoned cities, which is taken over by nature. I think theater is like this. It's creative. It always takes over, always finds a way. And I think that this thing only refreshes it. It's a new route on that big jungle, which we call theater. New routes indeed. But I think it's a part of this great, big, colorful organism. And another thing that I want to add here, I read in books that theater, the first act of theater was maybe when people came back from hunting, told each other with the animal skins how it happened, you know. It's maybe true. I think it also could be true that the first act of theater was someone telling his dream to another person. It was also an act of theater. And I think even if, I don't know, even if power shortages go and even if pandemics come, you can always tell somebody what you were dreaming or something. You find a way. And that way always refreshes and makes this jungle more colorful.
I wanted just to add two things, and I think it's already been stressed here, but it's like this, maybe this online theater opened the door, not for the online itself, but when we go back to the physical, what kind of tools can we add? What kind of technologies can we make this more, even more intercultural? How can we enlarge this dialogue? How can we reach, like we are doing here, how can we reach more people, and how can we not only reaching, but how can equity we bring more equity even. And the other thing is, the other thing that comes to my mind is sustainability, which is, this year we organized an international theater festival in Setúbal, and the thing is, we have these theater talks every year, and they're usually live with live guests present. And this year it was the first time where we had some guests. They were not live; they were being streamed, and this was an option, and we were all okay with this. So why? And there are some things that can start to be an option, and we need to think of them as being in the 21st century. Do we really need to travel for some things? We can still connect and we can still create being far away, not using a plane, not using a train, but sharing our ideas and our views and our thoughts with others. And we do not need to be so strict and so dogmatic sometimes. And we need to think what is also our what resources are we using, and how are we using them? And that's it. That is it. Thank you.
I actually agree with Patricia completely, and it'll be quite personal now because I actually started living in a country, and the only thing which I was really afraid was to miss theater, and here I don't, because I'm simply connected and living a theater world in a countryside, and I think this can be a solution for many people, and the sustainability is also a big question. And of course, in the years when I really did like theater a lot, I really traveled a lot, and I spent all my life in big cities. And then I was fed up with theater because it was just too much culture and and too much traveling. And so I think this can be an option how to go on doing it a little bit softer. Not the only one, but I think it can be like a stream which will go on. And it's also great to really get connected with people from other places, because my sister, who plays also in the performance, so she plays from Italy, and thanks to this I see her if I want, so I can see her 6 times a week because there are just 6 or 10 performances a week. So it's a way how to live somehow together and also more sustainable, and I'm thankful for that.
What a great image of a theater as a global jungle, a big village where we all can live sustainably. Yes. And also with each other, while we have all the space to move around and do our sports and get connected to Mother Earth. It's a promising future, I would say, if this is true. Adam, what would be your closing remarks?
I just wanted to say that I'm afraid that our time is up, so we're going to have to wrap up now. So I would like to thank all of you for your participation, and I would also like to thank the viewers for their time and attention.
I'm really grateful to be here. I'm very grateful. It was a very, very good fun also.
And say hello when you come to Portugal.
Okay, thank you for the invitation.
You're all invited.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
It's really nice.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.